Here's a look at what we're expecting in the week ahead. It's going to be a little light on the data thanks to the government shutdown, but there are some very important things we need to focus on, the least of which is some really important earnings. Pay attention. Let's talk about earnings, what we're going to have next week. First, I want to start at a high level. Let's talk about the density of sectors, right? What we're going to get in these sectors. Let's start with all of our favorites. Let's start with technology and semiconductors. In the upcoming week, we're going to hear from Cisco Systems, Applied Materials, Rocket Lab, CoreWeave, Big Bear AI, Rigetti, and Luminar and quantum computing. Now, I rushed through those numbers. That's not as important as understand that you probably recognize some of those names in there, and they're all there for a reason. I'm only showing you the highlights. There are a lot more out there. And you should check out our blog posts where we do actually post the earnings calendars on Monday. So you should check out, if you check out in our description, you will see a link to our Substack where we do post some of this stuff along with charts and things like that. You should check that out as well as a daily blog post, which covers a lot of what I cover in our videos. But you can go there and you could read away and you can get these materials, which will help you navigate the week as well. Anyway, I'm highlighting the ones that I think are important. Cisco for obvious reasons, Applied Materials, which is very much in the semiconductor space, CoreWeave, which is an outsource AI chip provider, right? So that is the company that has partnered, that is partially actually owned by NVIDIA, and a lot of companies are outsourcing processor heavy activities to CoreWeave, right? An interesting company. So a lot of people are going to be watching that company this week. And obviously, I mentioned Cisco, Rocket Lab. It's space tech. People love space tech, and we're going to see that today. So a lot of high density AI hardware and space tech. Next, energy and utilities. We got some important ones this week. We got Oxy or Occidental Petroleum, Duke Energy, Constellation Energy, amongst others. These are like a blend of traditional, fossil and renewables transitions. I'm going to highlight one or two of those in a minute. In media and entertainment, we have Walt Disney, a company that probably has a lot of fantastic assets, not quite realized by the market yet. But that's always a very interesting one to watch. Paramount, Skydance, iHeartMedia, Flutter Entertainment, Flutter. I'll talk about that in a second. We also get Six Flags. So a lot of these have a really strong consumer discretionary and advertising sort of impact, right? Strong presence over there. So we're going to watch those this week. Private capital and financials, right? This week we hear from KKR. We hear from one part of Blackstone Secured Lending, and Harbor One Bancorp, right? KKR, first thing that pops to mind, private lending. Private lending has been very much on the top of mind for everybody these days. And not only do we want to see them healthy, but we'd like to learn what their exposure might be. We've had a couple weeks ago, we did a whole one of our whole sort of a big part of one of our weekly recaps. We covered these recent challenges in the auto industry and the impacts and the potential implications from private credit. So we got to watch that carefully. Okay, what are some of the big ones to watch? I mentioned Walt Disney already, and that is coming out this week. That is obviously the global entertainment bellwether, right? They have assets everywhere. We want to know about ad tier performance, streaming subscribers. We want to know about how their theme parks are doing. So this stuff is really important, right? Because again, this is the bellwether. Cisco is Cisco Systems, as I mentioned earlier, they too, very, very important, right? They're a big part of this data center build outs and infrastructure. And we want to know what they think. How are their orders? Are they seeing challenges ahead? Are they upping or scaling back their expectations? This will definitely be watched very, very closely by that crowd that is concerned about CapEx spend in data centers, applied materials, semiconductor equipment, tighten, right? This is going to be really important, right? Because the chip sector is at the core of everything. And any company in that sector that we get any data from is going to have a high level of impact on not only the tech sector, but the S&P 500 and the broader markets, because they're that important and that critical to right now artificial intelligence. We have Constellation Energy. They're they're one of the leading nuclear power providers, right? Nuclear, something that we didn't even really want to talk about for many, many years. But now we're talking about it all over the place because of AI. AI is very power hungry, and nuclear energy, think of it what you want, but nuclear energy is highly efficient and very inexpensive to produce. So it's very much a thing. I could spend hours talking about all the interesting plays on nuclear energy. But Constellation, we're gonna hear what they have to say. I mentioned Oxy Petroleum. That's a big one. That was always on the top of the list at Berkshire Hathaway. People like to watch that one really carefully. I mentioned KKR. That's an important one, and why. I'm not going to go over it again. Paramount Skydance, interesting one. I think this is going to be their first earnings since they were combined, right? So in any of these types of companies in the media space, we want to, like, there's a lot of content mergers and spinoffs going on right now. And so we want to watch these carefully. These are companies that are trying to sort of figure out how to operate in this new normal space that we're in the media space. So we're going to watch that carefully. TransDigm is coming out this week. TransDigm is an aerospace and defense provider. These guys here have massive pricing power, right? They're very specialized. We're going to want to see their order backlogs and all that kind of stuff to see the overall health of the defense industry, which everyone is very, very interested in right now. I mentioned Flutter Entertainment. These guys are online sports betting, right? So another key theme of the market recently. So how are they doing? We want to know. We're going to pay a lot of attention to those as well. So, the big themes, again, I think they keep recurring through everything we discussed. All of the data that we got this week, whatever data we could get, those fears, those monsters under the bed, the monsters in the dark corners in the closet, they are coming home to roost, and they were all having to be digested by the equity markets this week. And equity markets, they went from highs to lows. There was some early in the week dip buying, but that was unsustained. We had big names in the financial industry coming out, talking smack about the market, reminding us about those wounds that are not yet healed. So the market really rode through a storm this week in terms of things that go bump in the night. And those things start to show up on the doorstep again this week. But all in all, even though markets traded lower this week, markets held up pretty good. And I want to remind you also that that this month, November, historically is seasonality-wise the strongest month of the year. So if we go back 20 years and look at how all the Novembers in the S&P 500 performed, November is the best month. And I think on average, something like 2.5% or something like that was the average amount in November. So November is historically a strong month. We'll see if the market will add to that, support that, or maybe pull back. But it's an important month, and it's a very important psychological month because it leads right into the holiday season. And people are generally more positive this time of year, and consumption tends to be a little stronger this time of year. That said, we'll see. Markets right now are hovering just below all-time highs. They're kind of struggling a little bit. It would take some, very positive things in the weeks ahead to allow the market to get back on its feet and maybe sort of pierce through and end the year more positively. Remember, from a macro perspective, there are tailwinds, right? We have accommodative-ish of Fed policy, that's monetary policy, accommodative fiscal policy on one hand with the One Beautiful Bill Act, and you have seasonality, you have strong earnings, you have these things. Now, there are challenges too. So I don't want to ignore the fact that we have headwinds as well, geopolitical risk, all the stuff that I mentioned today. A lot of these things have to play out. The government shutdown, very, very important. We're going to watch that very carefully because now people are paying attention. I had a interview the other day and a press interview, and they were asking me about my thoughts on the government shutdown and, why I thought or when I thought the government shutdown was going to be resolved. Now, of course, I don't know that. I'm not a political guy. I focus on policy, not politics. That's my rule. But I can tell you that politicians, and this is not a political statement, are very much affected by what their constituents think. And if the stock market is going high and these guys are duking it out on Capitol Hill, well, maybe there's no incentive for them to change their patterns. But if markets start to fall apart, if the noise from the markets start to show or express their dissatisfaction, well, you better believe that these guys and gals are going to start to sharpen their pencils and maybe come to a resolution. That said, I saw earlier today fly across the tape that there are rumors that the Democrats are looking or they're seeking to possibly sort of meet in the middle somehow or give up ground a little bit to try to get a resolution. That's just rumor at this point, but hopefully it's true. Hopefully we can see our way through, get a continued resolution, which, by the way, doesn't solve any problems. It just kicks the can down the road for another big, throwdown in the future. But this is coming to roost right now. It's getting to that point where it can impact the real economy, and sentiment in the market is starting to reflect that. And so those are the things we're going to be watching in the week ahead. And I will say that I want you to know that, if you like this type of content, please do me a favor, click like, click subscribe. And I said earlier, we have a number of media outlets that we put some very, very useful information out on. I mentioned Substack. You'll see the link in our description to Substack. Go over there. We have a wealth of information, chart books, etc. And we post daily, numerous times. We talk a lot about what's going on in the markets, a lot about what to be looking at. This is just a recap, but we put plenty of videos out every day. Come and check us out. We got a lot of good information to share with you. And that was your weekly wrap up from Truthbombs. Remember, we drop them here before the market figures them out.